Black Scully on check. Got a CFB Nation theme polo on check. Welcome to another marvelous episode. On today's docket, we got quite to talk about today. We're going to talk about roster construction. I talked a little bit about this a couple of weeks ago on College Football Nation. Don't forget, that show's live, same time. Sundays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And this one we go live Mondays and Wednesdays. This one is the more in-depth show. I thoroughly enjoy this because I can go on long rants and be the way I want to. But my ideology has 100% changed on roster construction. Once upon a time, it was what it was. I felt the way I felt about it. 85% out of high school, 15% out of the portal. The only reason you go into in a portal, maybe a guy hasn't developed the way that you thought that they would develop, so you would go and get that guy out of the portal. That was a need, and that has completely changed. And I think if we look at the last two college football playoff semifinals, Final Four, whatever you like to call it, you'll see a stark comparison between the two, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. The college football playoff stays at 12 teams. Happy about that. I believe we did get some wins with the college football playoff staying at 12. There are more intricate details I'll go into later. I hate the fact that Notre Dame, if they're a top 12 team due to the thing that they signed a couple of seasons ago, they are guaranteed a spot in the playoff. I hate that. I don't like giveaways. This isn't Christmas. This is college football. Earn your keep. And then also, I think we'll never see two G6 teams in it again with the Power 4 teams champions. So like Duke would have made the college football playoff this year with winning the ACC championship this past season. The Darian Mensah Saga, speaking of Duke, that was actually an excellent segue, has been crazy. I felt in the end, I wish I could show my CFB Nation group chat, I felt in the end he would leave and he would be able to do what he needed to do. And because of three letters, CBA, there's no CBA at the collegiate level. They still view these guys as student athletes. And I think it's time we start to view them as employees. They're making money. The type of money that they're making, they should be deemed as employees. There should be some collective bargaining. And all collective bargaining is give a little, get a little. That's all it is. You both, have ideologies that'll probably be far, but can we get somewhere in the middle where the players say, all right, we can agree to this, and the coaches say, okay, we can agree to this as well. So super excited, super elated for everything with this issue. I like how it was resolved, but in the end of the day, there's going to really be some things that we need to look at and we need to adjust. So also, sleeper teams of 2026. I love the offseason because I get to kind of start looking at things and be like, hey, I like the way this team looked at the end of the season. What adjustments can be made? And so some of the teams that I'm looking at as sleeper teams, USC shouldn't be a sleeper team, but to some, they're still slept on. So we will definitely have USC on that list. Mississippi State is another team I'm looking at. I love what Jeff Lebby is doing in Starkville. Yes, they finished the season 5-8. Yes, regular season 5-7. But they were one of those teams that were allotted an opportunity to play in a bowl game a season ago. I like where they had it. Zach Arnett is back in Starkville. Didn't like the first experience. I thought there were some lies told to Will Rogers and his family about the style of offense they will run, but he is an outstanding defensive coordinator. So I think that'll be outstanding. Michigan State, the Pat Fitzgerald era has officially begun in East Lansing. I'm super excited for it, and I think they can be a really good program. And then I mentioned Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech should also be on the sleeper team list. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody, but it is what it is. We'll cover them at that moment. And then we'll also do an Auburn football deep dive. Super excited to talk about Auburn. I know a lot of their fan base probably not the happiest with how things were handled with Cam Coleman leaving for Texas and Eric Singleton leaving and the mass roster turnover. But I promise you, Alex Golesh is a guy that is comfortable in the SEC. We've seen him lead one of the best offenses in recent memory with Hendon Hooker and Jalen Hyatt at wide receiver, and they were putting up points in bunches in the SEC. They were number one in the SEC in scoring that year. The veer and shoot does work in the SEC. We saw Tennessee with a guy in Joey Aguilar this past season, a guy we weren't sure how great he was going to be in the SEC, have success in this system, and the amount of players that came over from USF that understand the system, that can teach this system to other players. I believe Auburn is going to be better than advertised, and when I do a comparison between Ryan Silverfield and him going to Arkansas and John Summerall and going to Gainesville, and yes, the resources at this moment in time in Gainesville are more I'm trying to, there's a verbiage that I use all the time, but the resources in Gainesville are certainly more plentiful is the word I'm looking for than the resources in Auburn, but I believe Auburn will be more prepared for season 1 with them. Governor of College Football, hashtag go CFB. CFB Nation, your only college football destination. Let's get it. Governor of College Football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
defensive minds. They have to be better on that side of the ball. It is Wednesday, January 28th. Shout out to J. Cole. I believe his birthday today. And also, Rakim, one of the greatest MCs of all time. It's their birthday today as well. So happy birthday to them. I'm super excited for this show. I look forward to the show. I used to do this show 5 days a week, and I'll tell you the amount of preparation that goes into this show, and it's weird. I was talking to my dog Moon earlier. I was like, I write all of these notes, but 90-something% of the show, I'm not even looking at them. Like, they're just there as a reference in case I go too far left on a rant. So we're going to get into the news in case, you guys been busy at work or, like, it's the off season. You're not tuned in with college football as much as you normally are. Don't worry, the governor got you. I'm going to give you the latest college football news. Lincoln Riley stands firm on USC defensive future. I know a lot of people were like, yo, I really like what his defense was headed under the tutelage of DeAnton Lynn. Outstanding defense of coordinator. I believe he's headed to Ann Arbor, if I'm not mistaken, to be the defensive coordinator at Michigan, still staying in the Big 12, and a system that Michigan has quite frankly run for a very long time. He will give other multiple looks, but I like the hire of Gary Patterson. I always talk about the analyst position for most people is like a college football sabbatical, if that makes sense. And I truly believe in that ideology that you can go somewhere and you can just do as much research as possible, pay attention to tendencies that teams are doing, while you can develop as whether it's a coach or coordinator, you can just truly develop. And the fact that the experience of head coaching experience, when you combine Gary Patterson and Lincoln Riley, it is immense. They have so much experience at this level. Gary Patterson has seen so much. He's the father of some of the modern defenses that we've seen today. He will do an outstanding job there. I'm going to do a deep dive of, not deep dive, I'm doing an Auburn deep dive, but USC is one of my sleeper teams heading into 2026 college football season, so I'll explain further why I think they'll have that success. I'm interested to see how Kirk Cignetti has changed college football. And a lot of people may be, whoa, what do you mean? Like, Kirk said, yeah, he won a national championship, but how does he change college football? I look at Lincoln Riley as a player's coach, a guy that runs a really quarterback-friendly system. It works. He has a lot of success with it, but there also seems to be times, whether it's in the regular season or the times that he has been in the college football playoff, where they need to get over the hump and they can't get over the hump, right? Notre Dame was a good example for that as a game that they had the possibility to win, and winning that game would have probably propelled them into the college football playoff or just on the cusp of missing the college football playoff. I'm interested to see how that switches with everybody. See, okay, what Cignetti is doing is working. It's not exactly transformational coaching, but it is, because you are getting development from the guys that he's bringing over to his program. But it's that attention to detail. It's that accountability. It's that leader-led training style that Kirk Cignetti has, and it truly works. Like, it's one thing to hear from somebody who is leading you, but they're not living in their truth of their leadership. It's one thing if, coach is demanding of you to be a hard worker, to show up early, to stay here late and really be a troop, but, in the off season, they're on the golf course. That's not leader-led. I can't believe in what you're saying because you don't live by this principle. Well, Kirk Cignetti does, and I think you're going to see this kind of insanity in coaches. I think this might be the new wave. Like, hey, we're going to hold players to a high standard, high accountability. We are going to be so detailed that you guys don't do anything we don't expect. Our players are going to be prepared for everything. And we saw that with Indiana. The play ended on an interception that Carson Beck threw. And guess what? That's through training. That's through being detail-oriented. Like, the team was in cover 2 zone, not cover 2, man, where you can play trail technique because you got safety help over top. This is a cornerback who read that they don't have nobody in the flat. I'm going to trail this like it's cover 2 man. And that's where the confusion came on, because Carson Beck read the play right. It was absolutely a cover 2 zone. But because there was no flat route on his side, the kid just made an outstanding play to get the interception. I think that's the wave of college football we're about to head to. That player accountability, that leader-led, like, yes, I'm going to work just as hard as you, probably more harder than you're going to end up working. And I think when you pair somebody like Lincoln Riley with Garrett Patterson, that's what you're going to see. So I'm excited to see what happens in SoCal this upcoming season. Big Ten released schedule a few days ago. I'm not going to go over the entire schedule. You guys can see that. Just put it in your search bar. Some of the marquee games, you got Ohio State Buckeyes, Texas, week 2. It's going to be an outstanding game, and that's like a home and home. You guys know how this goes. They were in Columbus this past season. They will be in Austin next season. This will be a different team. Both of these teams will be different, but that Texas team that you saw that had the inability to score, they got more players on the outside to go with Ryan Wingo. Their running back room is going to be better, and Stark is going to be more prepared. I think he went into that game having one expectation, or really no expectation on what Matt Patricia's going to do defensively. But some of those Willie concepts, I like to call them, those man zone concepts, and they'll split the field in half. It really confused a lot of people earlier on. And you'll see teams later on down the stretch have more success against it. Like Miami was able to have some success against it. But a lot of that was playing outstanding defense and forcing Ohio State to be in the deep water. Ohio State struggled in the deep water at times this season. So can't wait to see that game. We got Oregon Ducks at USC. Brilliant game. I think we've seen it the other way around this past season. USC, that was another game USC had opportunities, and USC lost the game. But this time it's in SoCal and it's not in Eugene. That's going to be an outstanding game. I look at Lincoln Riley, and I think he's done an outstanding job at USC. I know he's not well liked, and that's okay. Everybody's not going to like you. I think he's an outstanding coach. And Dan Lanning, what do we get from him this year? I think there will be an increased focus there, an increased player accountability there. Outstanding motivator, best motivator in college football. But I think what we will see with Dan Lanning headed into this next season is he's going to be laser focused. And not saying he wasn't laser focused before, but that laser focus he's about to have right now is going to be truly incredible. We got Michigan going to Eugene to play Oregon. That'll be an outstanding game. And it will be one of those, in my opinion, when you look at Kyle Whittingham and everything he brings to the table, was at Utah for a myriad of years. And that seems like to me like an old Pac-12 battle with the coaches, right, when you think about that. So I think that'll be an outstanding game as well. Penn State going to SoCal to play USC. We saw they struggled against UCLA out west. Some of the weather, it'll be interesting to see how they fare this season. Really high on USC. I think you guys know that already. Indiana has to go to Columbus like they did a couple seasons ago and play Ohio State. That's going to be one of those games that you're just going to have marked on your schedule. You can't wait to see it, because as great as this Indiana team was this past season, won a national championship, undefeated, perfect season, this roster that they have going into next year may even be better. And that's the scariest part when you're looking at this Kirk Cincinnati team. If you are not familiar with Josh Hoover and what he did down in Fort Worth at TCU, you are going to see a light show. And I think this is one of the ways that we see coaches say, you know what? I'm not going to get a kid out of high school. I'm going to get a proven kid and teach him our system. We're seeing that that's happening in Louisville. Louisville had Jack Palmer, Jeff Brom's first year. Second year, Tyler Shuck. Third year, Miller Moss. Fourth year, Lincoln Conholz, a guy that lit up the spring season. Gave Julian Sand a run for his money during the spring camp and fall camp. Right? Ultimately, Julian Sand won, but I think this is the methodology that we're looking at this sport right now, and the changing of the guard, so to speak. So I'm excited for this Big Ten season. Big Ten is the best conference in all of college football. If you disagree with that, argue with the wall. They won the last 3 national championships. I feel like I shouldn't have to explain this to you, but some people need it explained too. Let's talk about these ACC projected quarterbacks for every team. I really love to see some of this. At least we have a starting point, because there's so much roster movement at the college football level, especially with one transfer portal window. So it seemed like so much. So I'm constantly on 247 Sports rankings. I'm looking at each team, who left, who came in. It's really difficult to keep up with, and I know a lot of us are waiting for our lads to start to upgrade their depth charts. And they're not always 100% correct, but they're close. They're pretty close. I would say they're somewhere in between 89, 90, 95% correct, because a lot of times they rely on insiders with those brands. But Mason McKenzie is going to be the starter, projected starter at Cal. JKS, Jaron Kiwi Segapulatele. I always mess his name up. He had a great freshman season. We were interested to see if he would end up leaving Cal, but I think because he likes the hire, he stayed put at Cal. Because a lot of people's like, yo, the season this kid just had, super live arm. You're like, he's not. There's no way he stayed there at Cal, but he ended up staying. We got Christopher Vincent, who's been at Clemson for a few years. Let me turn my phone off of notification. That was kind of loud. Vizina, who's a quarterback at Clemson. He's been there for a few years. We did see him in play this past year after their starter got hurt a few games. So I think they trust the process. And Clemson was more active in the portal than they had been in recent memory. But I'm cool with it. Dan Mahan is going to be the quarterback at Duke more than likely. We know everything. We're going to talk about this Darian Mensah situation a little bit later. So it's going to be interesting. Ashton Daniels, Florida State went and got him early in the portal. So you figure that's going to be the guy. Alberto Mendoza at Georgia Tech. He fits what Brent Key and company likes to do. So I think that's a great fit. Lincoln Kineholz, I talked about him a little bit earlier at Louisville. This is Jeff Brom method. Is he ready to be coached? Is he ready to be held accountable? That's what I always ask for Jeff Brom quarterbacks. Like, are you guys ready? Because he's not going to tell your offensive coordinator or your quarterback coach to talk to him. He's going to come talk to you. And what the F were you thinking is going to come out a lot of times. He don't play around. Darian Mensah at Miami, and the fact that Cooper Barkate went down there with them, it's going to be a scary season in the 305. I tell you that. Billy Edwards Jr., guy that we seen followed a while when he was at Maryland. Then he went to Wisconsin. Now he's at UNC back in ACC territory. So it'll be interesting to see where he's at. CJ Bailey is one of those really under-the-radar guys. If you haven't seen him, but I think a lot of college football fans has. He's spectacular. He really lit up and exposed Georgia Tech a season ago. It was an outstanding game. Mason Heichenschel, quarterback for Pitt, will be the guy. Kevin Jennings has been a staple in the ACC, and then this is a guy that, when you're looking at preseason superlatives, his name is going to come up a lot because that system that they run down there at SMU, that RPO system, he's one of the best quarterbacks to run that system. To be absolutely honest with you. And Coach Rhett, Kevin Jennings, that almost like a match made in heaven. Davis Warren, a guy that we seen kind of a little bit of here, there, and everywhere. He's going to be Stanford head coach next season. Steve Angeli, Syracuse, I think, was on its way to having an outstanding season. We saw what Fran Brown was able to do year one. Year two, they started out hot. I know they lost to Tennessee, but after that, they went on a roll. They was able to go down to Clemson. I was at the game on the sidelines, and Steve Angeli was putting on a light show before he got injured in that game. Bo Perbula is at UVA. I like that fit for him. He's a guy that I don't think the Jeff Brom style coaching is the best method of coaching, to be honest with you guys. I think that the style of coaching he needs, I think Tony Elliott can provide as their head coach. There was a game versus Alabama. Missouri had opportunities. He had made a mistake. He's pacing on the sideline. I wish somebody would have just grabbed him and say, hey, it's going to be all right. We're good. And then Virginia Tech got a guy that James Franklin is very familiar with in Ethan Grunkemeyer. So those are the projected ACC quarterbacks. Like that a lot. Few names stand out to me. Alberto Mendoza, I know everybody's like, well, he's not quite his brother. He's a dual threat. He's with a team that's not afraid to run a quarterback. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. And we're also going to talk about SEG projected starting quarterbacks for 2026. A Keelan Russell experience. I know a lot of fans in Tuscaloosa are ready for that. And I know a lot of people probably feel disrespected by some of these way too early polls that have Alabama at like 17 and 22. The disrespect is real, but, that embarrassment versus Indiana kind of opened a lot of people's eyes, unfortunately. Arkansas, KJ Jackson's going to be the guy quarterback. Auburn, Byron Brown. We'll talk about Auburn quite a little bit later. He is a top 5 quarterback in the SEC, and he's not 5th. Aaron Philo, a guy that had some success at Georgia Tech. We was wondering if he would enter the portal after the 2024 season because Haynes King got dinged up a little bit that season, and Aaron Philo showed an immense amount of potential to play. And then Florida took a flyer on him, and he's going to be the guy for John Summerall in that offense down there in Gainesville. Kentucky got Kenny Minchie. Kenny Minchie went somewhere and flipped early. I forgot exactly where he was going to go. I think it was Nebraska. Then he went to Kentucky, I guess, after he talked to Will Levis, and Will Levis talked about how he's going to utilize him and the success that Will Levis has had with a myriad of quarterbacks. You have to think that Kenny Minchie is going to be successful in this system. Sam Levitt, I've talked about Sam Levitt quite a bit. In my eyes, this is a great fit for him with a system that works. He got players around him that are going to make plays, especially at the wide receiver position. The only thing is all excuses are minimized, so the success you expect it immediately, unfortunately. Mizzou. Austin Simmons is down there. They just got Caden Lee at wide out. I would love to see what happens in Columbia. I think that is going to be fantastic, to be completely transparent with you. John Mateer's coming back for another year. We weren't sure if he was going to go into the NFL draft or not. I think he can utilize another year with him and Ben Arbuckle, quarterback and offensive coordinator. Brent Venables showed the ability to play outstanding defense. So we'll have to see. I'm hurt because they didn't get an opportunity after they was up 17-0 in the opening round of the playoff to go further. But I like what Brent Venables is building down there in Norman. Trinidad Chambliss, asterisks, of course. If it should be passed that he's allowed to come back. If it's not, that's just the NCAA hating college football again. It is what it is. George McIntyre, we was wondering if he was going to be the guy, if he was going to be able to beat out Joey Aguilar a season ago down there in Tennessee. This is easy system, bro. Joey Hazel and company do a great job with their quarterbacks. If Joey Aguilar can flourish in that system, Shokai and George McIntyre. Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. I'm going to call out Marcel Reed. I think this kid's potential is through the room. I really do. I think Marcel Reed is a dynamic quarterback, but the expectation I have for him next season is so high it'll be next to impossible to meet. But he has to meet it. Arch Manning. I know a lot of y'all don't care for Arch Manning, but I'm telling you, it's going to be fireworks next year in Austin. Be prepared. And then Jared Curtis, true freshman. He's going to get a lot of experience. And I love what Barton Simmons, the GM or AD, and Clark Lee, the head coach down there, is doing down there. And then we're going to talk a little bit about Mel Kiper's big board before we get into all of our stories today. And these are just the quarterback position. The number one he got from Fernando Mendoza for Indiana. Of course, he's the standard, Heisman Trophy winner, won the national championship this year, 16-0. I know some people don't like him. I think he's an outstanding quarterback, but he has to go into the right system, and they have to be ready to groom him properly. Ty Simpson, it'll be interesting to see where he lands. Did throw for 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns. Doesn't turn over the ball a lot, but when he did turn over the ball, it was terrible situations when he turned over the ball. I'm interested to see what he looks like at the combine. I really am. Trinidad Chambliss is on the list, and he's third, but I think he'll be back in Oxford next year. Drew Aller is fourth. Now, prior to the season, you're looking at Aller. You're looking at some of these guys and saying to yourself, they're probably going to be the guys looking at the next level at quarterback, but they failed. Carson Beck is at 5. He's an older guy. Spent 2 years starting at Georgia. A plethora of starting experience at the collegiate level. That'll be a guy who lands with the right team. You hope he lands with a guy like Shanahan or a guy like McVay. I think that'll be a good draft for him. Garrett Nussmeier was supposed to be like QB1 heading into this draft. And when I tell you there isn't a year that couldn't have went worse, it was terrible for Garrett Nussmeier. It was also terrible for Cade Klubnik as well. And that's why there's no guarantees in coming back to college. And that's why I was like, I think Dante Moore should strike it while the iron's hot, because next year's quarterback class is better than this quarterback class, if I'm speaking candidly. So I think that's the danger. He has Diego Pavia at 7. I've heard mixed reviews of what's going on down in Mobile. I wish I was there, supposed to be there, but the weather wouldn't allow us to be there. Cade Klubnik at 8. My guy Sawyer Robinson at 9. I've heard mixed reviews about him down there in Mobile as well. There's going to be a team that fall in love with this kid. I think this kid does have NFL potential. And then Taylor Green is also down in Mobile at 10. So that is our Into the News. Hopefully I caught you guys up with everything that's going on in college football. Now let's go ahead and move along and get into our first segment, roster construction. It's so funny that my ideology on a lot of things don't change as it pertains to college football, because I feel so strongly about my beliefs in college football. One, because I watch a lot of the games. I think that's a starter. Yeah, I watch a lot of games. And guess what? I'm at a lot of the games on the sideline as well. And my notifications are so organized for Twitter that the notifications I get are for the CFB Nation. Nino does an outstanding job with that. I'm going to get my news there. D-Now sends me stuff all the time, sends stuff in our chat all the time. I can't give the rest away. I'm sorry, but just make sure y'all check out CFB Nation. But it's so organized, and I'm always getting the news. I have strong beliefs about this. I have strong beliefs about, the sport is so great in the fall, but the semantics of it, I have a lot of beliefs about that as well. But my ideology of roster construction has changed, because I always believed that the Dabo method was the best method. right? I always believe that Dabo set the gold standard of how you recruit. You want to recruit mostly out of high school? I think Dabo's at like a 95-5, right? I always say like 85-15. Like 85% should be pure development, transformational. If you view the portal as transactional, so be it. But get a guy. If a guy hasn't quite developed the way that you thought, like let's say this season, Gideon Davidson hasn't hit the metrics that you thought he was going to hit. Hey, let's go get somebody like a Bryson Washington. They didn't do this, but I'm just using this as an example. That's a guy we could probably get. So I always thought Dabo was a gold standard, and for a myriad of reasons. One, because he recruits out of high school, because there is transformational coaching that's happening. The way that Dabo develops these players, they stay down there for 3, 4, sometimes 5 years, and the parents feel safe with him as head coach. They graduate as at a high level. They become better men because of the time that they spent in Clemson. A lot of the players come back. I've been at spring games there. I've been at regular games there. The players always come back at that program, and that does happen at a lot of programs, but I've always felt like the Dabo situation was kind of the best situation, and it is what it is. And part of my belief started to shift a little bit when heading into last year, when we look, there's a metric that's done every year called return production, and that's one of those key metrics. I look at it and I say, okay, I already felt strongly about this team. I love the coach. I love the schedule. This return of production plus my beliefs tell me that, hey, this team is going to be very successful this year. Clemson was not successful this year. It was an absolute debacle. Same thing with Penn State. I was like, yo, maybe this is the year that James Franklin can get over the hump. That was my strong belief, that this was the year that possibly James Franklin and Penn State could get over the hump. Based on my beliefs in those programs, the players that they had in place, and that returning production metric. And both of these teams were top 5 in returning production. And I believe Clemson was number 1 in returning production, right? And that kind of shifted my thought process, right? James Franklin gone after a heartbreaking loss to UCLA. And this is transformational coaching. And this is a guy who was screaming transformational coaching before the season started. He was like, I will never be transactional. I go get the pieces that I need, but I want to develop these players, right? And it's heartbreaking to see. It really is. So, like I said, just 2 seasons ago, this is what I thought the perfect formula was for building your roster. 85% out of high school, 15% from the transfer portal. You develop, you retain, you transform. That's what I thought, right? And that ideology truly felt unshakable. I'm like, there's no way this isn't the perfect formula. And this is something Jalen and I talked about a lot on the first year of College Football Showdown. We were just talking about like how we want to build our rosters. And I remember having an episode, and I said, yo, this is how I want to build my roster, right? And I think we kind of got a new reality, and that new reality came in 2025. And in 2025, as you guys see the graphic I have on the screen here, Oregon, 57% out of high school. A team that has, when I talk about plentiful resources, Eugene has plentiful resources, especially with CEO of Nike, Phil Knight, as a backing there, right? 43% for portal. That's a large percentage. I know it does swing 14% one way to high school, but that's still a lot. Miami, 305. You think about the kids coming out of high school in Miami and all the speed. 46% high school, 54% the portal. Right? That's an 8% swing to the portal side. We got Indiana, 35% out of high school, 65% the portal. They just won a national championship with these numbers, with these metrics. To me, that is insane. That is insane that they were able to win a national championship with this. 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that you can do this. There has to be some development that happens. These players have to be in the system for a long time. But think about it. If you're a first-year head coach, you're going to lose a lot of players. We saw Coach Prime do it in Colorado. Kirk Cignetti did it in Bloomington, right? We seen Alex Golesh lose a lot of players in Auburn, right? John Summerall lost a lot of players in Gainesville. It happens, right? And in order to build your program now, to be able to win now and win later, you have to utilize the portal. That's something that Zach Kitley talked to me about in great deal at American Media Days, that he was thankful for having the players who understood the system, that could teach his system so he could hit the recruiting trail, right? 35% out of high school for Indiana, 65% out of portal, and they won a national championship. Ole Miss, 35% high school, 65% portal. They were in the Final Four. This is the new reality of college football. This is the new reality. The portal ain't so bad, is it? You know what I'm saying? It really ain't. And that's a truth I had to accept. And when you look at it in 2024, every team that was in the Final Four in 2024, you know, it was high school. Penn State, 88% high school, 11% portal. Transformational, that's what James Franklin would say. Notre Dame, 80% high school, 20% portal. Texas, 80% high school, 20% portal. And as much slack as we gave Ohio State when they won the national championship in 2024, they were still 77% high school, 23% portal. It was still out of high school. Now, the portal has become so heavily utilized and so scrutinized. Honestly, it's probably the way to go. If you want players that kind of have an identity, that understand what it's like to be a student athlete, they know what they want. Hey, I want to go somewhere that helps my potential to go to the NFL. Right? I want to go in a system that really utilizes my abilities in the best form. Like you seen Alberto Mendoza go to Georgia Tech. See, he's going to run a lot. We seen Haynes King run a lot. We seen even Aaron Philo, when he had some starts at Georgia Tech, they run a lot. So on the flats, you will see Alberto Mendoza running a lot. It's just, but that was a stark comparison between 57 being the highest, right? The lowest, Ohio State was 77 in 2024. The highest is Oregon at 57 out of high school. That's a 20% disparity. The old world of college football that we love and we adore, it's gone. The sport is still the same, but just the semantics in the way of roster construction and roster development has changed immensely. It really has changed. So how do you guys feel about it? That's the question I have. You know, how do you all feel about roster construction? What do you think is that perfect fit? Mine used to be 85-15. I don't know what it is now. I would say 50-50, but whatever it takes to get to the college football playoff and have a chance to bring your program a national championship is how I feel now. But before it was 85-15. That's no more. That's no more. And do you guys feel like development could truly happen with the portal being utilized as much as it's utilized? I think that's another outstanding question. Can you truly develop players with the portal utilized as much as it is? I think you can. I think you can have the best of both worlds because you see it in Indiana. It's not like last year was kind of like that because sometimes you got players in the spring. But now, you know, after January 16th, you're enrolled. You now have from January to August, understand the system, truly understand it, perform in the system to get ready. You know, you got winter workouts now. This is where you get the camaraderie and really get to know your teammates as you go through these hard military style workouts and sometimes circuit training. And then you move into spring camp. So you're getting installs. You get to practice against each other all the time. Then you have the spring game, right? And then you go into your summer workouts where it's more camaraderie getting ready for the season. In fall camp, we're here. Let's get it. The season is just a few weeks away. So now you have time for actual transformational coaching. And I think we saw that at Ole Miss this year with Lane Kiffin and Pete Golden. We saw that in Indiana this year with Kirk Cignetti. We saw it in Miami with this year Mario Cristobal. If there was the coach who impressed me the most this season, I was familiar with Kirk Cignetti because I was season credentialed at JMU for a few years. So I was familiar with him. I'll be a liar if I said I thought he would have instant success. I thought they would do okay. But what I mean, okay, like bowl eligibility, few games over bowl eligibility. I didn't think he would win a national championship in 2 years. And Oregon, the same thing. I think transformational coaching is happening at all these spots. It's just that ideology of 85-15%. That is no more. If these players can't get it, they can't cut it. We will utilize the portal, and you have more ready players in the portal. Miami just got Darian Mensah. It's got Cooper Barkate. That team is going to be must-see TV with Malachi Tony as well at wideout. So the ideology of roster construction has changed 100%. All right, let's move on to our next segment. We're going to talk about the CFP staying at 12 teams. And this is an interesting piece. I kind of went over it in the earlier segment. And I think this one is important because, remember, there were talks, right? I've always talked to D-Now and Moon and Nino and Jalen about kind of their thoughts on what they think the perfect playoff would be. I remember back in the day, Jalen would always say he thought 6 teams were kind of the sweet spot. I thought 8 teams was the sweet spot. But after their 2 installments of 12 teams, and it was kind of a little bit different installments because we saw that the strength of schedule matter, head-to-head does matter. We got to see a little bit of their metrics and their ranking of teams. I would like to see it all, but we got to at least see a little bit of the door opening so we can peek behind and see, okay, what's really going on? What do you guys truly evaluate as we're looking at teams, right? So I like that it stays at 12 because remember there was talks like it's guaranteed going to like 14 or 16, and I think that the SEC and Big Ten kind of came to agreement here. And it's funny because I'm sure Greg Sankey and the SEC for many a years felt like they ran this sport. And I'm sure they probably still feel like they run this sport. You can't have a great conference with a bunch of, board of governors that don't think they are the league. The Big Ten is the league, though. And I think we've seen that over the past few years. But I'm glad it's staying at 12 teams. But there are a few wrinkles. The Notre Dame wrinkle I hate. I'm going to be 100% transparent with you. I hate it so much that they signed that agreement. I think it's called like an MOU or something like that. And if they're in the top 12, they're automatically in. I don't like that. That means that team that's sitting at number 11, of course, because you get the G6 team in, that's another wrinkle as well. The G6 doesn't have to be the champion. Doesn't have to be a conference champion. It's just the highest rated G6 team. But a lot of times it's going to be a conference champion that end up getting that spot. But this past season, we got 2 G6 teams. We got one in JMU, and the other team that we got this past season was Tulane. We'll never see that again with some of the adjustments that they made. So with the new rules that have been in place, this past season we just saw Duke in the playoff. JMU wouldn't have been in the playoff, and with these new rules, also Notre Dame would have been in the playoff, and then you could choose who you wanted to take out. I think it'll probably been Miami, even though Miami beat them head-to-head. So that's one of the things I don't agree with, but I do like we only get one. Because I feel like with a playoff, you should get the 12 best teams, right? And, of course, with the G6 team, you should get the 11 best teams, but this didn't even happen this past year. So, and even with the new rules, Duke shouldn't have been in the playoff, but they would be in the playoff next season if that makes sense. So, overall, I'm not upset at it. I'm not mad at it. I'm glad we stay at 12. 12 is comfortable. I don't like some of the lopsided games that we've seen this year. Oregon and JMU, better game in the second half, but Tulane and Ole Miss was a blowout. We also saw that with Alabama and Indiana. I want closer games, but, sometimes teams are just better and teams are more equipped to play during that time of year than other teams. But I truly feel like we don't need more than 12. I'm comfortable at 12. I wasn't even a huge fan of going to 12, but I do like 12. You have more teams with an opportunity to make the pool. And then once you're in the dance, anything can happen. We all know that. I don't think we should go to, 16, 14, 24, whatever, 20, whatever you guys believe. I think 12 is cool, right? The Power 4 conference winners are in now. They're automatically in. It's not like how they're in and then they have the auto bid like we saw at the end of the 2024 season where they have an automatic buy. It's not like that. The top 4 can still be whatever the top 4 teams per the committee believes. It's just that they're automatically in. Like I said earlier, Duke would have been in this one. I hate Notre Dame having a top automatically in if they have a top 12 finish. I absolutely hate that. That's not college football, bro. That's not college football at all. Like, I feel like we just giving out free passes at this point, right? Like, just all right. You guys you're Notre Dame. You guys on national television each and every week. Here's a consolation prize. You guys should make the college football playoff every year. Join the conference, bro. I've been with that stance. You guys are in the conference in every other sport. Join the conference. Notre Dame wanting all the special attention, man. It's embarrassing, bro. Join the conference. Join the conference. Don't have no hand-me-downs or no handouts. I don't like that, Notre Dame. We'll move on to the next segment. This Darian Mensah situation, really interesting. I'm going to go over a lot here. I feel like it's important for me to go over a lot in order to tell this story the way that it needs to be told. So we're going to talk about this Darian Mensah saga. Yes, he's in Miami. We saw photos and I think a little bit videos yesterday of him arriving down there in the 305. So we begin in the courtroom, right? So, and this is how we're going to start it out. Darian Mensah wanted to enter the transfer portal and head to Miami, right? And it raised a lot of eyebrows because he just signed the contract, right? And then Duke said, okay, we got something for you. And we got something called the TRO, which is a temporary restraining order. On January 23rd, Durham County Superior Judge issued a TRO preventing Mensah from enrolling and or licensing his name, image, and likeness, that's just NIL, to another school at least until February 2nd. Well, why is this important? That's important because most schools start their, I think it's called the spring semester. They start that like middle of January towards the end of January. So February 2nd, he was going to be SOL, right? It was nothing he could do about it if it waited already to January 2nd. And I'm sorry, February 2nd. It just wasn't going to work. And the Blue Devils alleged that Mensah breached a multi-year NIL contract signed in 2025 and ran through December 31st, 2026. The deal reportedly granted Duke exclusive NIL rights tied to higher education and football. In plain English, Duke treated NIL agreement like a non-complete, right? Like contractual, right? The lawsuit even enforced reports that Miami had offered $10 million buyout. The judge intervened because no arbitrator had yet been assigned, and because, in his words, transfer would be difficult to unwind. That's the student-athlete part of it. Then came a twist. The judge recused himself due to a conflict of interest. His wife worked at Duke, so of course he wouldn't want him to leave Duke, right? A new judge was assigned. And then now we have this settlement. So before February 2nd, and we know that Darian Mensah and his team asked, like, yo, we got to move this up. I got to be able to enroll in school. We got to move this up, right? But fortunately enough, the right thing was done. Duke and Mensa reached a settlement. And I know a lot of people's not going to agree with that. Well, he signed the contract. He should be held to that contract. They're student athletes, brother. And until we have collective bargaining, and like I've been screaming for a very long time, you can't hold these things as contractual because they're student athletes. The student part makes it interesting. You cannot play for a team if you are not enrolled at that university. So until we have collective bargaining and treating these kids like employees instead of athletes, these things are non-contractual in my opinion. And also, the NIL piece of it, I thought they were going to be legitimate like NIL firms, right? And not just schools really paying them, right? So reached a settlement. Mensah committed to Miami. They also got Cooper Barcake. Him and Malachi Tony's going to make a great pairing at wideout. So they had dinner in Miami Beach, and, you know, of course, the former Hurricane player sealed it. And you look at what they were able to do at Duke this past year. Won the ACC championship after a 7-5 regular season. He threw for almost 4,000 yards, 34 touchdowns, one of the best pure passers in all of the sport. And he's going to the 305. He is a better quarterback than Carson Beck. I said what I said. He is a better quarterback than Carson Beck. And a system that I think Shannon Dawson's system, he's going to flourish in that system. So we're looking at a guy, and I know there's other quarterbacks we're going to be looking at. Arch Manning is one of them. Julian Sanders is another one of them. And I know Jalen's a huge fan of CJ Carr. But this guy, Darian Mensah, and this Shannon Dawson system can be the guy QB1 headed into 2027. Make no mistake about it. I know Dante Moore is another name we'll be hearing up there as well. But the damage was already done. It really was, right? And this is my stance on it. How you get something is how you lose something, right? Under the same grounds that Miami tried to get and eventually got Darian Mensah, it's the same grounds that team in Durham got Darian Mensah. And then you might not feel that way. You might, well, hold on. They got him in the portal. It wasn't any of that. Answer me this. When Darian Mensah entered the portal last year, early portal window, of course, because we had the late portal window as well, $8 million deal was already set up between him and Duke on the day that the portal opened. Come on, man. If y'all don't think that was a little bit of poaching, a little bit of tampering, somebody got in contact with him and was like, hey, this is what we're willing to give you. He probably said, this is where I'm at. Well, let's meet somewhere here. That deal was already signed, sealed, delivered before the portal even opened. That's what I think. And how you get something is how you lose something, right? Big bank take little bank. If there's a kid at the collegiate level to say, hey, I did what I was supposed to. I almost threw for 4,000 yards. I threw 34 touchdowns. There's a team in Miami that could propel me better to the NFL than you guys can at Duke. And I love what Manny Diaz has done at Duke. And don't forget, these two teams play next year. So if you think Manny Diaz and company are not going to blitz him, they're going to blitz him a lot. Manny Diaz has done an outstanding job in Durham. But I think this is a classic case of how you get something is how you lose something. And I think we saw that 100%. They offered that man 8 million reasons to leave the Big Easy to come to Durham. Just like Miami offered him 10 million reasons to leave Durham and come to the 305 and come to Coral Gables. Right? You can't look at that as hypocrisy, right? You gotta look at that as just gravity. It is what it is. We need CBA. We need CBA. If there's one thing I can push for, it is CBA, because I see this classic case all the time. Like we saw it with Desmond Williams, quarterback at Washington, wanting to enter the portal and wanting to go to LSU, and Washington was like, well, hold on, that's so you just signed a contract, bro. Like, you got to hold yourself to the contract. And ultimately, he ended up withdrawing, trying to enter the portal, and went back to Washington. But we need CBA. This thing is going to continue to rear its ugly head. This thing's going to continue to be ugly until we find a way to collective bargaining where the coaches are way over here, the players are way over here, but we're here. Like, how do we get here? How are these contracts are contractual? And maybe they shouldn't be a 2-year thing. Maybe they should be a yearly thing. That way, if you want to breach it, you can breach it because it's only a year after the season is over with. So, in the end, I think what was going to happen happened 100%. I truly do believe that. But at the same time, we need CBA. We need CBA 100%. All right, let's get into our next one. We'll talk about some sleeper teams. And excited about this segment. One of my favorite things to do is roster dive this part of the year. It's difficult, though, because there's so many moving pieces. And I kind of will go to 247 Sports, look at these rosters, look who left, look who they received, look who stayed. Because our lads will update and see who stayed. And you'll see a lot of freshmen, returning freshmen. So they'll be rising sophomores, and sophomores will be rising juniors. And it's interesting, right? And I love this segment every year because every year you have predictions. You start to look at rosters, starting to understand rosters. And last year I swung and I missed on Baylor. Oh, my God, I swung and missed on Baylor, right? But one of the teams I felt like I was right about was USC. Really love the makeup of USC. And I think they're closer than people think, right? Let's start in Los Angeles. Jada Maiava, outstanding 2025 campaign, 3,700 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. And I'm not a QBR guy. I will pound the table and say I think it's a stupid stat, but a lot of people like it. He had the second best QBR in the country and added 6 rushing touchdowns as well. Everything starts and ends with him. To have a guy of his caliber that understands the air raid the way that he understands the air raid, I see Lincoln Riley open up the air raid more than I ever seen him. He's like, okay, this kid Makai Lemon is real deal. We got to find ways to get him the ball, and they was able to do that at USC, right? And I think the running game will be phenomenal again. King Miller, true freshman, went nuclear last year. 972 yards, 8 touchdowns, 6.2 yards per carry. Wayman Jordan is old, so coming back at 576 yards, 5 scores, averaging 6.5 a pop as well, right? And then when you look at they got big shoes to fill with Makai Lemon. Don't forget they had a true freshman who's going to be a rising sophomore this year. 34 catches, and Tanuk Hines, 34 catches, 561 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's going to really help this team, right? And you start to look at this air raid. It's always been plug and play. Every year you'll have somebody that pops, and then the next group of guys come in. Lincoln Riley believes in his ability, and having a guy that's one of the best quarterbacks in the country commanding your offense. They should be successful a lot again this year. My biggest question about USC heading into the Big Ten a few seasons ago was, could they bring their lunch pail? Could they win ugly games? I think they've showed they've had the ability. Iowa was one of those ugly games last year. They were down. Iowa was playing physical, and they found a way to win that game. You have to be able to win ugly games in the Big Ten. It's just what the conference is. It's not always going to be pretty. We got a lot of sexy ball out in the Pac-12 days, right? The Big Ten is not like that. You got to be able to bring your lunch pail to work. That blue-collar mentality, we want to find a way to win. They grit, they grind, and I think that's what you get in this team and what you saw in this team at times a season ago. Defensively, I think this is where the tone changed. You got Cameron Crawford and Brian Shelby, who's kind of anchoring that front, and Garen Patterson. He got pieces that I think that could build the defense he wants to run there. And we know DeAnton Lynn did an outstanding job there. I forgot the guy name that was there before him. It was bad. It was so bad when he was the defensive coordinator there. It'll come to me a little bit later, but I like what USC has. Look out for USC next year. I think they're a sleeper. They shouldn't be a sleeper, but I think they'll be damn good next year. The Pat Fitzgerald era has officially begun in East Lansing, and I like a lot of what he's doing already. First of all, we all owe Pat Fitzgerald an apology. Northwestern owes him an apology. A lot of media owed him apology, and it's so good to see somebody do something that they love. He'll never get the apologies he deserves. He just really want the things that his family had to go through during that time period. I can only imagine. But shout out to him. I think he can bring Michigan State football back. I really do. Alyssa Milovic will be the starting quarterback, and we saw him take over late for Aiden Child later in the season. He was effective. He was efficient, and I think that's why Pat Fitzgerald's like, hey, let's retain him. Let's get this guy to play quarterback, right? 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 64% completion percentage. I'm not mad at it at all. I think this kid can deliver in this system, especially under Pat Fitzgerald tutelage. This is Nick Sheridan offense. He was the offensive coordinator 2024 for Alabama. Kind of had a weird role this year with Alabama. I felt like Ryan Grubb was the offensive coordinator, but I feel like Nick Sheridan did help offensively, whether it was with the run game or passing game. I think this is a good fit for Nick Sheridan. I really do. Jason Patterson, I think, will be RB1. I truly believe that. His time at Iowa, a Big Ten guy, he's proven. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he can have a really good season. And I think the thing that Pat Fitzgerald did this season, I think that was really special was in the portal, he really attacked to win that war of attrition on the line of scrimmage, right? Getting a guy like Trent Fraley, getting a guy like Robert Wright Jr., getting a guy like Nick Sharp, getting a guy like Ben Murawski. I think they are going to want to play physical at the point of attack, both offensively and defensively, and that's how you win games. We saw Northwestern this past year really try to get guys to be like, okay, we can be better than we were in previous years, and they absolutely were better. And every year I feel like there's a team in the Big Ten that come out of nowhere. Whether you think it'll be UCLA this year with Bob Chesney there at the helm as head coach now, or you think Northwestern with Aiden Childs there at quarterback, to me, watch out for this team in East Lansing. I truly believe that. Mississippi State, I think Starkville is quietly cooking. I truly believe they're quietly cooking. And I know they went 5-8 this year, right? 5 wins. They did go into a bowl game. And sometimes that happens. You know, few teams opt out, like Kansas State opt out, like Iowa State opt out, like Notre Dame opt out of playing into a bowl game. Well, there's going to be some 5-7 teams you need to play in some of these bowl games. So Mississippi State was that team. And what Jeff Lebby is building out, you could just see it. You really could see it. Like, that win over Arizona State, I think it was September 6th, man, was one of the best wins of the year. It really warms your heart to see that fan base deserve that win on September 6th that they got. And I think the kid Kamario Taylor is must-see TV. You could just see it. You could just see it, right? Blake Shaben was the guy the last few years. He's graduated. Kamario Taylor, he's got that pop. I think he's a dual-threat quarterback. I'm interested to see how he performs in his Jeff Lebby system. Jaden Rashada will round out that quarterback room. I do expect Kamario Taylor to win this one, but Jaden Rashada should certainly be ready when his name is called, whether it's in mop-up duty, whether it's, Kamario Taylor goes down. I like the addition of Jaden Rashada. This should be a well-rounded quarterback room. Great job, Jeff Lebby, per usual. In the backfield, Fluff Bothwell is back. Has 677 yards last year, 6 touchdowns. I would like to see him get more carries this year. I really would. I would like to see them possess the ball a little bit more this year. So it'd be interesting to see how Fluff Bothwell, but he's certainly RB1 heading into next season. That wide receiver, they got Anthony Evans. He had 67 catches and 4 touchdowns a season ago. And his target share should really explode this year. I feel like Kamario Taylor and or Jaden Rashada will be looking for him a lot. And defensively, you get a guy at defensive coordinator and Zach Arnett who's truly going to get these guys ready and prepared. I didn't like that experience down there when he was the head coach down there. I feel like he lied to Will Rogers and Will Rogers' family about the system that they will be running. That's neither here nor there. You just learn from it and you grow from it. And I'm sure from his perspective, he don't feel like he lied at all, right? But I think he's a damn good defense coordinator. I think it was an outstanding get, to be completely transparent with you guys. So I'm loving it there. And then Georgia Tech, man. I think the Mendoza effect is going to be real on the flats. I really do. I think it's a fit. You got a head coach in Brent Key who identifies as run the ball. That's his mantra. With Alberto Mendoza, who is more athletic than his brother. He can run the rock really well. This is a system with quarterbacks flourish in the system. And then you add the piece like Justice Haynes, who's going to be right next to him in the backfield. This is going to be dynamic. I think in Georgia Tech, I know they lost a lot of pieces. You look at Aaron Follow going to Florida. Haynes King is gone. Jamal Haynes is gone. I like what they have. And I trust their head coach. I really do trust their head coach. And then George Gotti, how fast do we pick it up as the offensive coordinator there? I think in order for Brinke to hire him as offensive coordinator, they have to have some similar ideology. Let's run the ball, set up play action, take our shots, utilize our quarterback in the run game. I think that's what we're going to see. Wide receiver Jalen Mbakwe was a hell of a get from Alabama, right? This remind me of who was it? It was somebody I can't think about. They went to Baylor, and I was like, I think they could. Jalen Mbagwe should flourish in the system as well. So those are the teams I'm looking at, and there'll be more of these segments of sleeper teams. I'm looking at Southern Cal. I'm looking at Michigan State, and I'm not saying these teams are going to win the national championship, but what I am saying they're going to be marginally improved. We're looking at Mississippi State, team in Starkville, and Georgia Tech. So I believe these teams can be much improved heading into the next year. Let's go ahead and get into this Auburn deep dive. I'm really excited about it. This episode has been fun. These episodes go by so fast, bro. I'll be sitting here talking, man. I get lost and to explaining myself that, sometimes I forget, how fast these things go. But let's say it plainly. Of the 3 new SEC head coaches, and Alex Golesh, John Summerall, and Ryan Silverfield, and shout out to Ryan Silverfield, that guy's amazing. Moon had one of the best conversations I've seen with a media personality and a head coach in a very long time. I saw that Jalen and Justin Wilcox when they talked at ACC Media Days a year ago. But I think the guy that is prepared for immediate success is Alex Golesh and the Auburn Tigers. And it's funny because most people would say, well, the resources are plentiful in Gainesville. So I think John Summerall, and he's kind of wins everywhere. I think he'll be okay. Don't be surprised. That's all I'm going to say. Just don't be surprised, brother. Don't be surprised, right? Why Golesh works immediately? Because he knows the league. He understands the SEC, right? You guys don't remember that beautiful offense that we saw down there, that veer and shoot that we saw back in 2022 when Tennessee Volunteers were darling of the sports with Hendon Hooker at quarterback. Jalen Hyatt was at wide receiver, and they was just making plays, brother. They were making plays. They were putting up points. That Alabama-Tennessee game that year was one of the best games in recent memory. And Alex Golesh, and the veer shoot just works in this conference. I don't know why. Maybe it's the 4-2-5 look. Maybe it's the spreading them out and, with the wide hashes. I don't know. It just works. And it stresses the defenses. They will go tempo. And to me, it starts with Byron Brown. And I know you guys are going to be like, well, he did that in the American. Can he do it in the SEC? Yes! Yes, he can do it in the SEC. And anybody who's questioning that, is he better than Jackson Arnold? Yeah. Is he better than Peyton Thorne? Yeah. Is he better than Bo Nix? The last season Bo Nix was in Auburn, not Bo Nix at Oregon. Bo Nix at Oregon was a dog. But that last season Bo Nix in Auburn, yes, he is. He's everything that you guys think he is if you just saw what he did last year. Over 3,000 passing yards. Over 1,000 yards rushing. This kid, Byron Brown, is the real deal. 42 total touchdowns. That's 28 passes and 14 on the ground. This kid is incredible. And when you got a guy that understands your system, you don't got to teach him your system. You already know your system. Of course, you're going to add some new wrinkles, right? But he's going to have full command of this offense. He processes extremely fast. He's not afraid to run a ball. And last year, I feel like it was a statement year for him. He got injured. Back in 2024, people didn't know if he would run as much as he would. Oh, yeah, we going to run the rock. Oh, yeah, we definitely run the rock, right? So I love Byron Brown. Follow him there. When he entered the port, I'm like, there's only one place he's going, right? He has to trust Alex Golesh, in the system that he's in, right? And I love the depth that they have at running back. Jeremiah Cobb almost had 1,000 yards a season ago, right? Bryson Washington had a down year coming over from Baylor in 2025, but in 2024 he was incredible. I had him listed as one of my top 5 running backs heading into the year. And though I loved him in Jake Spavital's air raid offense, he'll be even better in the veer and shoot. And here's why. Air raid doesn't have a lot of wide hash mark things. They will have some of those principles, but the veer and shoot is completely to spread the defense. If the numbers say hand the ball off, they're going to hand the ball off. But guess what? That's going to work for Nakai Davenport, who transferred over from USF, for Jeremiah Cobb, who's still here, and Bryson Washington. You got a kid that rushed for 1,000 yards last year. So that defensive end, when it's spread and the numbers say run, I wish you would. Defensive end try to go after that running back, he gonna pull it. So the defensive end gotta be honest. That backside of defensive end gotta be honest. That means he can't open the run game. That should open up the run lanes. So these three running backs, I don't know who's gonna win it. I would bet on Bryson Washington because I think he's gonna have a chip on his shoulder. I know people at Auburn like, nah, Cobb is winning that. If you don't know Bryson Washington, look him up. Alrighty, Auburn is Auburn, not winning nothing. Alrighty, why do you feel that way? Johnny Jackson, Auburn is Auburn, not winning nothing. Why do you feel that way? That Auburn isn't winning anything? Right? I never said they were winning a national championship, but why do you feel Auburn not winning anything? Auburn is Auburn. Wow. That's rough. All right, let me keep going. I don't even know what you're talking about. So, yes, Auburn did lose Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton, and I know a lot of the fan bases a lot of the fan base there was just pissed off. It's Auburn. You don't have a better reason than that? I understand it's Auburn, but Indiana was Indiana for a long time before Kirk Cignetti got there. Give me some tangible things, brother. I need something tangible, brother. So they got Keshawn Singleton. 3 of the top 4 receivers at USF last year are now in Auburn. They're not Cam Coleman. They're not Eric Singleton, but they work in his system. They really do work in the system. They work really well in the system. Truly believe that. You got Jermiah Coger. You got Chaz Nimrod. Chaz Nimrod is a big play wide receiver if you haven't seen him. He averaged 20 yards per catch last year, and he just makes a lot of plays. When it's a timely play, he makes a lot of plays. A lot of plays. And in that veer and shoot, I think he's really good, like I said, with the 20 yards per reception. The offensive line, SEC has too many teams. All right. I think that's fair. I think now you're giving me tangible thing. That's something I can work with. You're right. Florida is supposed to be improved this year. Arkansas is supposed to be improved this year. I love what Jeff Lebby and Mississippi State is doing. And, of course, Texas is going to be nuclear this year. Georgia's going to be nuclear this year. I agree with that. But Vandy did go, what they had 3 losses in this conference this past year? Maybe 2 they had in this past year. And, their roster, wasn't outstanding. Yeah, they had Pavia, but it was just an outstanding belief. I'm not saying Auburn's going to win 10 games this year, but I think they'll be bowl eligible this year. I think that's fair to say. And I love what Alex Golesh has been able to do with this offensive line. He rebuilt it with intent. You got Derek Plas from Miami. You got Kenneth McManus from Akron. He's better than you think he is. TJ Hendrick from Ole Miss. You got Jacob Strand from Southern Miss. You got Stanton Ramil from Michigan State. He had 8 starts as left tackle a year ago. Joseph Simons from James Madison and Jack Laria from Stanford. So they've really doing the work. And then DJ Durkin, to retain DJ Durkin, that was super important for Auburn. I thought the interim experience would lead DJ Durkin to being the head coach. I really did. But to be able to retain him, he does a great job with these defenses, right? And there's always 2 things they're going to do well. They're going to tackle well. They're going to be aggressive at the point of attack. And also they're going to be able to rush the passer. Caleb Harris, nearly 100 tackles the last 2 years. Rashawn Pleasant, I thought he might enter the portal. He's impressive. Auburn is looking at the bottom of the well. Okay, that's fair. But make sure you come back after the season and talk to me. If they are at the bottom of the well, then cool. But if they're not, hey, man, you got to apologize to Auburn, brother. Xavier Atkins had 9 sacks, 84 tackles, 7 QB hits, and 2 forced fumbles a year ago. And then coming in reinforcements, they got Shamar Arnox from Florida State, Andre Jordan from UCLA, Nate Johnson from Mizzou, Gavin Jenkins from USF. Their schedule. Their schedule, of course, they got Baylor neutral site. They played Baylor last year as well. They play Florida at home. They go at Tennessee, at Georgia, LSU at home, at Ole Miss, Iron Bowl, and Tuscaloosa. I do expect this to be a bowl-eligible team. Whether it be 6-6, 7-5, I do think this team will be bowl-eligible. Shout out to everybody who commented in the chat. As I always like to say, there are no more victories in the sport that survive in the fans. That's why college football has the greatest regular season. Until next time, you all take care. 1. Governor of college football, we're going to recap ACC.
Hey, that's CJ
Defensive
on
minds.
the
They have to be better on that side of the ball.